rain-free weather comes to an end after today, but boy, it'll be sunny and hot for your Wednesday afternoon highs just shy of 90. We'll call it 88 degrees. Wednesday night, partly cloudy and 67. Thursday, chance of showers and thunderstorms, most likely in the afternoon, partly sunny and 84. Thursday night, showers and scattered thunderstorms, overnight lows in the mid-60s. By Friday, 50-50 shot at some showers and storms, mostly sunny and 85. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now, back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning. Thank you for tuning in. Rumble, YouTube, bumpy start is YouTube and Rumble things didn't exactly connect as smoothly as we like, but smooth has never been my middle name. So thank you for joining in and calling in 434-882-4217. As we join in on a morning where you don't even know where to begin. Triage is the hardest thing. You can also email to jtinthemorningradio@gmail.com. You can also post comments to either the YouTube or Rumble feeds there, and I'll see them here in the studios as well. And the call-in number, by the way, is something you can even text to if you'd rather not speak publicly. And that's okay. Everyone has their thing. Or maybe you're just in that kind of morning mayhem that mornings can become, because mornings are the point in the day when we wind up having to pay the price for putting off till tomorrow what we could have done yesterday, because mornings are generally when that has to be done. Centennial celebration for the Robert E. Lee statue in Lee Park in Charlottesville. Full stop. Yes. No, they held a ceremony anyway for the 100th anniversary of the installation of the now smelted down Robert E. Lee statue that dozens of laws were broken in order to do that. So they celebrated their lawlessness there in the park, and it was empowered by David Duke and a bunch of people who made their case for them while pretending to be like you and me. Also, a kid from UVA is suing the university and the president and everyone involved because they allowed the Islamists, the anti-Israel protesters, to threaten him, to threaten bodily harm, to all sorts of things. So we'll get into this ugly story out of the Hampton Roads area. Rapper that I never heard of killed himself live on like a stream, and you can tell. I'm not going to play the video for you, no, but I did watch it just so I could report it to you. And he's just swinging a gun around, and all of a sudden it's pointing at his head, and it goes off because the safety was off, and it's live. It is horrific for anyone who is a gun owner and understands the awesome God-given right to defend yourself, and you watch this kid waving this gun around, and you see every horrific thing that unfortunately the unhinged left that doesn't believe in the U.S. Constitution or the Bill of Rights will use against lawful gun owners. And there'll be speechifications today, and there'll be members of the Virginia General Assembly standing up there saying, this is why we need to fix this so this never happens again. It's the phrase that pays when it comes to tearing down our constitutional representation. Enough doggy downer stories. A group of business managers, bankers, and that such went to memorial gardens and planted flags at the gravesites of all the veterans. We'll get into that story. And a bunch of primaries yesterday and what they might be indicative of here in Virginia as we face the primary season, and that we're going to start there because we have to start there. As we are about to purchase a radio station in Staunton, the News Leader reports yesterday, or I guess it's in today's edition of the Staunton News Leader, that Hung Cow, one of the hopefuls to win the GOP nomination for the position to run against Tim Kaine, referred to the Staunton News Leader and ipso facto to it Staunton and the Waynesboro area and the Shenandoah Valley as Podunk. Now, unelectable is a pejorative. And we've reached out to the Cow campaign. And we did it even when we had a radio show. He appeared one time right after he announced his candidacy and then ghosted us. And infer from that what you will. But many of his opponents have spent a good number of hours on the radio back when we had, and will again starting on Saturday. And we've reached out to all of them saying, do you have comment on this? But for now, let's unpack Podunk a little bit. And believe me, this may be the thing that gets me kicked off of YouTube faster than anything else.
Love us if you can, sorry if you can't, holler if you is, shut up if you ain't. Ho, 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 ho.
So with Rob Ritchie's wonderful musical accompaniment, and again, short enough to be fair use, and it is in relevance to this story of Hung Cow referring to Staunton, the home of our new radio station, as Podunk. Go back to the story from the Staunton News Leader. He made the comments while defending his position, and it goes back to an April story, which actually was in the Staunton News Leader the day before this podcast video show began on YouTube. We started on April 16th. This published on April 15th, and I believe we mentioned it. I don't know if it was Jonathan Emord. I think it was Jonathan Emord brought it up. He was on the show very early on in one of our iterations. They're all up there online. You can go search. But we talked about this with Jonathan, in which he was found to have, while promoting the idea of Give to My Super PAC, the idea of supporting Virginia candidates, and the idea was you give to this Virginia candidate this super PAC, and then he would be giving the money to Virginia General Assembly candidates, and that's noble. And certainly, there's been quite a bit of, let's just say, time and treasure spent saying that actions in the U.S. House of Representatives are the, quote, reason the Republican Party didn't win majorities in the General Assembly. However, this PAC, that Unleash America, was under its goal, under its banner, to get Republicans elected in 2023. And the News Leader reported people started realizing that the monies didn't go to 2023 Republican campaigners, but most of it went to Hung Cow's beginnings of his campaign. Cow repeatedly, while going around calling for donations, said that he was going to, help win the House and then run for the Senate. People kept saying, "Are you running for Senate?" I'm not announcing that yet, but we're focused on 2023. So the News Leader reports that April 15th, and then Hung Cow, as if he couldn't be tone deaf enough in this, goes on a New York-based podcast while in New York, apparently fundraising, Because I saw the story and I said, well, who is this guy? I didn't recognize the name of the fellow who he was being interviewed by when he referred to the Times, the news leader, as some podunk newspaper. And that's the part where whether he was in New York trying to glad hand for, Joe Biden does the same stuff. I mean, it's commonplace. Why do you rob banks, Willie? It's where the money is. So that, you go to New York to hold fundraisers to get money from rich New Yorkers to run your Senate campaign. Tim Kaine's doing the same thing. But the phrase, as I said, certainly pejorative, unelectable. You tell me. 434-882-4217, live real calls, and no windows either, so no peepers. But though pejorative, unelectable, I think it has to be applicable in this, and voting is continuing. Voting has already started in this primary. It will culminate on June 18th, but people are voting right now in this Virginia Senate primary. I already have. My wife already has. Let's just say I don't rue my vote after learning this. Infer from that what you will. But if his opponents in the Republican primary don't bring this up, I can guarantee you that Tim Kaine will. Tim Kaine will make TV ads that will run during every major sporting event in Virginia, or at least that will be broadcast in Virginia. He will pound this until Election Day 2024. Guaranteed. If Hung Kao is the nominee. Now you can say, and I can hear well, Joe, there's such a small population who lives it, and it is. Joe, come on. I hear it all the time. I hear it because in my industry, we have a market size envy thing in my industry. Well, Joe's career, it's this big arc, and he climbs up into the big markets like Buffalo, New York, and then he backslides down into smaller markets, winds up in a market not even rated, doesn't even get ratings, so small. It's also the hometown of America, Charlottesville, Virginia. Because, these people who judge communities by the size of their MSA. You have a pretty large MSA there. Are the same people who will sit there and create policies out of Washington, D.C. that will edict to you how you're supposed to live because they view you as the unwashed masses, those who need to be led, those who need to be told what to do. Those who need to have everything spoon-fed for you. You go play with your ATV in the mud now, Mr. Podunk. And whether you like Hung Kao or not, this is unfortunately the fruit of a situation where you run for something to run for the next thing. That's generally what you find in this. Is that when you have people who are running for one office and they know they're not going to win, but they're running for the next thing and they're making their friends in the political parties. And we're going to get into this. Chap Peterson, by the way, on the subject of political parties there. Let me do this real quick. We got folks on the line here at 434-882-4217. Good morning. Who's this?
Oh, this is Matt.
Hey, Matt, can I hang on to you for a moment?
Sure.
This is just like the old days. You used to do this on the radio program, too. Memorial Day is a time to celebrate those who gave it all so we can have it all here in the United States. And we celebrate in Earlysville on Monday morning as we broadcast live on the new WTON from the Earlysville preparations for their Memorial Day celebration, which will happen shortly before 9 o'clock. And join us for that. We'll have first free coffee for those, and that's the name of the coffee shop, not that you first come, first serve, won't get free. We'll also have some goodies for you to win and some bumper stickers as well as we broadcast live from Earlysville for Memorial Day on the new WTON radio.
Headed to the hall. That story next.
She can stand, she can do more. Like build a rocket and watch it soar. Clean the oceans and make the world a better place. Oh, she can stand.
Learn more at She Can STEM.
The NASCAR Hall of Fame class of 2025 is Ricky Rudd, Carl Edwards, and Ralph Moody. Rudd had 906 starts. Only Richard Petty had more. He held the record for most consecutive starts at 788 until Jeff Gordon broke that record in 2015. Rudd had 23 wins and at least one win in 16 consecutive seasons. Edwards was the 2017 Xfinity Series champion. He had 38 Xfinity race wins and 28 Cup wins over a 13-year career. Most of those wins ended with his signature backflip. He finished second twice in the Cup Championship, including the closest finish in history, a title decided by a tiebreaker. Ralph Moody won 5 Cup races as a driver, but his biggest success was as a car owner with partner John Holman. Holman Moody Racing won 96 races, including the 1968 and 69 titles with David Peterson.
Our rain-free weather comes to an end after today, but boy, it'll be sunny and hot for your Wednesday afternoon highs just shy of 90. We'll call it 88 degrees. Wednesday night, partly cloudy and 67. Thursday, chance of showers and thunderstorms, most likely in the afternoon, partly sunny and 84. Thursday night, showers and scattered thunderstorms, overnight lows in the mid-60s. By Friday, 50-50 shot at some showers and storms, mostly sunny and 85. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now, back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning here, broadcasting live from Podunk, according to Hung Kao, candidate for the GOP nomination to run for U.S. Senate. Joining us, Matt called in right as we were heading on to break, so let's get Matt in here and get his thoughts on this. And thank you, Matt, for hanging on the line here. What's on your mind, sir? Do you agree that this makes him unelectable?
I have 2 words for Hung Kao.
Uh-oh.
Ed Koch.
Hold on. Ed Koch was like mayor of New York for 100 years. I don't know. I don't get the connection there.
Ed Koch ran for governor back in
right. 86?
82. Gave an interview to Wing Magazine. Is supposed to have this sophisticated audio. I mean, again, to Ed Koch, upstate is anything north of Yonkers.
Which is not far upstate from New York City, by the way. And
yes.
So it was a hard sell for the very, very well-known mayor of New York to run for the rest of it, because having lived in the rest of the state, I can tell you the one thing anyone in Rochester, Buffalo, Middletown, you name it, the one thing they all have in common, they hate the city of New York. It was an upsell anyway.
Well, and I mean, he made some remark. I don't remember the exact specifics of it, but something about, putting on your Sears and Roebuck gingham dress and getting in the pickup truck to drive down to the polls, or something like that. And that just finished him upstate. And anybody who looks at a map, you look at anything north of Yonkers as upstate, if you're finished there, you're not going to get to be governor.
Yeah, New
No
York
matter
has
what
a
the
lot of
city
people.
says.
Yeah, New York City has a lot of people, but if you can win everywhere else, but New York, you're going to do something there. That is a very valid point there, and that not nearly as egregious as referring to Staunton, Waynesboro area as Podunk. I think Hershey Chocolate Factory and the Northrop Grumman folks would also like to have a word with erstwhile Senator Cow over that, because they're just moving in there. But and not to be mean spirited, and I have nothing against him personally, but this is what people get mad about with people like Tim Kaine, that elitist, I'm here and you're all down here. Because what happens when a bill comes along that's going to protect somebody's rights in Podunk? Does the senator, if he was to win, how does he vote on that? How does he draw up legislation? Is it just for Northern Virginia? And Matt, you and I have friends in the political consultant world. I'm sure they're saying, you know what, that's going to score him points in the blue crescent of Northern Virginia. They're going to say, yeah, we're tired of all those, Gadsden flag waving, Tea Party, Civil War reenacting Podunkers telling us here in the D.C. suburbs what to do. And maybe that's his calculus. It sounds more like an off the cuff comment that he made to this ironically New York City based podcast internet show that he was on, Alec Lace or something like that.
First of all, I would like to hear what it is he said in the context in which he said it. I don't want a newspaper just pulling out the word, podunk. Yeah, okay. This guy's no good. He called us podunk. I want to hear what he said in context.
Well, and I'll do that for you right now. So from the Alec Lace podcast, he was asked by the host regarding this story that goes back to April of his political action committee not donating monies to Virginia candidates that he had promised, and that there are citizens, not newspaper people, there were citizens complaining that their monies didn't go to General Assembly candidates. And then his response to this host was, I'm not going to answer every question from some podunk newspaper, because he had been dodging, I guess the allegation was that he had been dodging the story. But that was his statement in context. He said, I'm not going to answer every question from every podunk newspaper going on in this. So and maybe his attitude is the press is adversarial. Certainly that is a common theme in our day, that the press is in the bag for the leftists, that the news leader might be in the bag for Tim Kaine. So they would, if they were truly in the bag for Tim Kaine, Matt, they would have held on to this story until June 19th when he had won the primary.
Well, I mean, but the question also comes down to, is he disparaging Staunton, or is he disparaging the news leader?
No, that's fair.
And that's a question I can leave out there. But the other thing that annoys me with all of this is why we need an election day.
Yeah, no kidding. How many people have already voted and may have voted already for Hung Cow that are like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the sort of thing that campaigns live and die on.
Mm-hmm.
The candidate goes out and says something stupid, and then all of a sudden the poll numbers are all swinging the other way. And
see Terry McAuliffe.
if you have an election day,
mm-hmm.
then everything focuses in on that.
Right.
And everybody tries to keep their skirts clean up to election day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you're not all of a sudden saying, oh, geez, we had all these people vote for him back in whenever, and now all of a sudden he's not electable.
Well, but there's also this attitude, and beyond just the the knee-jerk reaction to the phrase podunk. It espouses an attitude towards parts of the Commonwealth and the whether his responsibility to answer a question about a political action committee that he ran and used, and this was the fulcrum of the April 15th story, was that he had used this political action committee as an entree into the public world again after his 2018 run for the U.S. House of Representatives. Comes back, hey, I'm raising money for Republican candidates, gets on TV, gets on some interviews, when in reality very little of that happened, according to the news leader. So I think some of it was just his attitude towards having to answer these niggly questions about, I'm not going to answer all these questions from some podunk newspaper. I guess, a lot of Virginia lives in Podunk. Is he not going to answer the Danville Record or the Charlottesville Daily Progress or the, how far does it go? Does he only answer questions from the Washington Post's Metro section and the Richmond, the Richmond Times, sends its stories out amongst its affiliated Lee papers anyway. But, you see what I mean, though, is that there's an attitude also about, I don't need to answer all these nuisance questions.
Well, and I mean, it's an old political trick where you just dismiss the whole thing as being unimportant because it is being raised by a newspaper that is not the New York Times or the Washington Post. Not that I put any gravity in either of those.
but people do, either online or not, they do read them. I sat down with the publisher of the Staunton News Leader, as well as the Crozet Gazette, and people say, "Well, Joe, that's yesterday." There's people, consume media differently. So to think that our video medium here in the interim, our broadcast medium starting on Saturday, can ignore that people read stories now on your smartphone app, or in an actual paper that may have to be mailed to you, is silly, because I think people do, as you said, Matt, want to see the whole thing laid out there. And I would encourage people to go to the News Leader. April 15th was the first story, and then this Alec Lace, was following up on it, and Cal bristled at the idea that he'd have to answer again for this podunk newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I mean, it sounds as if he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar, and now he's embarrassed by it, and he's trying to slag the people that are making the accusation that he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar,
while not answering the actual question of what happened with this political action committee.
Where are the cookies?
Yeah, exactly. Well said, my friend. And it's we're looking forward to maybe you come by and visit us on Saturday when we're down at Gypsy Hill Park.
Okay, I'll see what I can do.
All right, starts at 10, 434-882. You have a good morning, Matt.
You take care, Joe.
434-882-4217. Live, real calls. No poll involved. So jump into that. We've got a lot of other things to get into, but I have a feeling this one's going to have a little bit of legs. And, a sidebar, as Matt said about Election Day. Have you already voted for Hung Cao and now wonder what will happen if he gets the nomination and Tim Kaine starts running these ads all over the place? Do we tweak? Well, go ahead. One more time.
Love us if you can, sorry if you can't, holler if you is, shut up if you ain't. Ho, 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 ho. Vote on.
Joe Thomas. Join us Saturday morning at Gypsy Hill Park for Vets for Vets to raise money for the VFW in Staunton. Gypsy Hill Park, 10 a.m. It's not just Corvettes. Whatever your ride is, whether it's Mopar or a Mustang or even a hot hatchback, something that you drift with, come on down and show it off at Gypsy Hill Park. It's a $10 admission fee for your car. Dash plaques for the first 200 cars that join in on the celebration. There'll be music, food, and a live broadcast from me, Joe Thomas, in the morning. Gypsy Hill Park to kick off the Memorial Day weekend with Vets for Vets to raise money for the VFW in Central Virginia. Join us there at Gypsy Hill Park starting at 10 with Joe Thomas in the morning.
Our rain-free weather comes to an end after today, but boy, it'll be sunny and hot for your Wednesday afternoon highs just shy of 90. We'll call it 88 degrees. Wednesday night, partly cloudy and 67. Thursday, chance of showers and thunderstorms, most likely in the afternoon, partly sunny and 84. Thursday night, showers and scattered thunderstorms, overnight lows in the mid-60s. By Friday, 50-50 shot at some showers and storms, mostly sunny and 85. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now, back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
The issue is on this, whether or not, when you make a statement disparaging people you want to vote for you, and sometimes people do it out of this idea that I need to score points in Northern Virginia and the Hampton Roads area, the big cities in Virginia, and they'll love me more if I kind of point out, because there is an attitude in that we call it the Blue Crescent. Actually, it's more like a blue sickle to me. It's that area from Northern Virginia all the way down through Richmond and then down to Hampton Roads. Really, people talk about the keys to Glenn Youngkin's victory and Jason Miyares and Winsome Sears. It was the Hampton Roads area that flipped in Virginia that gave Youngkin and Sears and Miyares their victories in 2021. But that sickle that goes from Northern Virginia and all the D.C. workers, all the bureaucrats that live up there around, there is an attitude towards Louisa and Buchanan and Doswell and Wythe and all these places in the rural parts, what on a national scale would be referred to as flyover country. And that attitude is that, well, they're there, but they shouldn't be telling us how to run the state or the country. They're necessary. We need somebody to grow our corn for us or our peanuts, but we really don't want them telling us how to run the state. And it's an attitude that has been around since the beginning of the taxed enough already campaigns. More folks ringing in at 434-882-4217. As I said, we've reached out to some of the other, and we reached out to the contact I had with the cow campaign back from when he first announced, and he came on my old radio show. Crickets for the most part there, but we'll continue to press on this. Good morning. You're on the air with Joe Thomas in the morning. Who's this?
Joe, this is Eddie Garcia, a fellow candidate for the U.S. Senate.
Eddie, thank you for responding to our early morning request for a visitation there, and thank you for taking some time out to talk with us about this. Am I overstating? Because I said that this, unfortunately for us, we've had a good number of days already where people are casting ballots in the Senate primary, but whether you or any of the other opponents of Hung Cow use this or not, I will guarantee you Tim Kaine is already making a TV ad out of this. What is your view as somebody who's trying to win this nomination regarding this reference to nuisance questions from the Staunton News Leader as just a podunk newspaper trying to cause some trouble?
Joe, anybody familiar with my story knows I come from a small country town myself, and so this cuts dear to me. This is the frustration we see across the valley in the Southwest, across South Side here in Virginia, is that we have a political class of people who don't care about them. They overlook us. They discount us. Our priorities don't matter. We don't have the money that the people in D.C. or Northern Virginia might have. And they overlook us constantly. It's been happening for a generation. They've shipped away our jobs and our opportunity. They don't even promise to do anything for us. Meanwhile, our small towns are being hollowed out, and our tax money is being gobbled up by these guys in D.C. That's just not the type of person I am. It's not surprising to hear that from my opponents, because they come from a different background. They come from places where these big cities where they think that they're important, that they're maybe too important to come talk to people down in Staunton. I like going down there. When I get down there, I get a chance to go to St. Francis of Assisi Catholic Church. I know some friends who run and own the Good Fellowship Church down there, and so I like that. You're not going to get that type of campaign from me. It's a problem. And to your last point about the Democrats, absolutely. I mean, we can't have a candidate who's so flawed that they can't win, and I think that's an important decision that your listeners, that the people across Virginia are going to have to make right now. I mean, early voting has started, so I would recommend people go into their registrar's office as soon as possible and cast that vote. We need somebody who can speak to all of us. I'm running for what I call this Better Tomorrow. We have a government that works for all of us. Right now, we have a government that only works if you're in a big city. It only works if you're in Washington, D.C. It only works if you're a millionaire or billionaire. It only works if you're some prince or oligarch that doesn't live in America. Our American government should be working for us. If every single person, to include all our small towns, for my opponent to denigrate it, it just shows you, I think, what kind of person that you're dealing with, what kind of character that he has, where he comes from, and where his priorities are. I think I've laid out pretty clear where mine are.
And Eddie, I bless you for taking jump in with us here. And you last time you were on with us, you were talking about government working for people, and it is a phrase that people hear and they go, "What does that mean?" Talk about what that means, because to me, a government working for me means protecting my rights, making sure that I can speak freely, can associate with who I want to without the government interference, drive where I want to, visit who I want to without the government interference, spend what I want on things that our legislators have deemed to be legal, and not have to worry about the government inserting itself in there. What does a government that works for us and gets out of the way of the jobs that we could have? I mean, we have a housing crisis, we have a poverty crisis, where people can't find the work that they need in order to make enough money to live in the communities that they have. Even in Staunton and Waynesboro, a lot of people from Charlottesville move there because they can afford it there. When you say a government that works for people, take us into the concept of that, Eddie.
Well, a government that works for people, Joe, is one that does the simple things. We don't need our government to do everything. but we do need our government to do some things. And the some things that it does, it needs to work well, and it needs to work on behalf of us. So we need to secure our borders. We have a national security threat at our border. We have a humanitarian crisis at our border. We have smuggling and drug rings that are at our border, and the fentanyl that comes across kills Americans. The traffickers that come across, they harm Americans. These unaccompanied minors that are coming across are crowding our schools and hurting our inner cities and our low-income public school systems. A government that works for us helps seniors stay in their homes. A government that works for us gets veterans that are suffering with PTSD and mental illness off the streets and the care that they need. A government that works for us rebuilds a military so that we can be strong, not so that we can attack, but so that we can defend ourselves. It doesn't have to do a lot. It just has to do some of the basic things that it's supposed to do. It can give school choice to parents, so they can choose how and when to educate their kids. We can eliminate taxes on seniors to keep money in their pockets. A government that is focused on Americans. Right now, we take in $4.7 trillion of taxpayer dollars, and we dole it out to the people who already have so much. They give it to corporations. They give tax breaks to billion-dollar endowments in the Ivy Leagues. They give hundreds of billions across to Ukraine and around the world. And we have families that are struggling. And these are the same people. These are the same people in Washington, D.C., that when you have a struggling mom in a small town that's making under $30,000 or $40,000 and their kids are getting free lunch and free breakfast, 2 meals a day that they need in public school, these are the same people that tell you we don't have enough money to fund that kid's lunch and breakfast, but we do have enough money to give to Silicon Valley Bank. When they make wrong decisions and on the verge of collapse, we can come up with $500 billion, $500 billion for the rich and the powerful, but not for those small towns, not for those kids that are struggling through no fault of their own. That is what I mean. We have a government whose priorities are everywhere else. They're not where they should be, which is focused on us, the American people.
Well, I appreciate you taking us into that thought, because I know that it came up after the last time you were on with us. Eddie Garcia is calling in, on the fly on this story that's breaking this morning regarding one of his opponents, Hung Kao, and his attitude, referring to the Staunton News Leader as some podunk newspaper that he doesn't need to answer questions from. And Eddie, that's a subtext to this story, regardless of how you view small town thing. Talk about the responsibility of an elected representative to answer questions. Not are you still sleeping with your wife, Senator? But that that kind of setup stuff. I get these premise-laden questions, but a simple question saying, hey, did some political action committee you ran actually do what it said it was going to do? I don't think it's an unreasonable question, Eddie, do you? And would you answer all those questions?
Yeah, that is not an unreasonable question. He deserves to answer. He should answer. He should answer for all of us, because if he wants to be the nominee, he's going to have to answer a lot harder questions than that. And I got to tell you, Joe, I'm an open book. I was a U.S. Senate candidate. I launched my campaign in January of 2023, and in January and February and March of 2023, when my opponent was not announced as a candidate, he was saying that he was the director of a political action committee, and he was saying in these rooms at the RPV advance, at the Republican Party advance, he was saying at these things in meetings around a lot of people and cameras that he was raising money in order to help Virginia 2023 candidates. He had just lost his congressional race by 6 points to a lady who was sadly unable to campaign because of her illness, but still lost by 6 points. And he was going to raise money and help people in Virginia and help the governor keep the House and flip the Senate. And that's what he said. I was there. There are many videos. There's many podcasts. There's plenty of evidence that's saying this is what I was saying. And what the reporter reported was that $100,000, more than $100,000, was raised, and none of that money went to any of the 23 candidates that we had heard him promise. And instead, that money went to buying DC donor lists. So for his own campaign, it went to his own campaign manager and his own campaign staff. And so it looks like he was running already a shadow campaign for U.S. Senate and didn't want to tell anybody, and instead, promised money for 23 candidates that did not show up in anybody's donation contribution websites, because all that money is federally reported. And so that's a problem he has to answer. And if he can't answer it, then we should all pay attention to that, and that should probably set the stage for what he would be like as a general candidate against Tim Kaine. And we just cannot lose this year. It's too important. We need somebody with the character and the integrity to tell the truth, to be an open book, and not be afraid of accountability.
Well, and that brings up actually, behind the scenes stuff. We were already working on having Eddie on tomorrow's show, so you're getting tomorrow's show today. It's like that old TV show, early edition. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about, Eddie, was that simple thing. Last two presidential polls have Virginia all of a sudden in this weird place where I think Roanoke College had it, President Biden leading in Virginia by 1 percentage point, and then there was another one that came out, I think it was from Old Dominion, that said it was right around 2 points. That changes the paradigm in Virginia, because I think that also impacts our House of Representatives races and the U.S. Senate race, because it's too easy for the punditry to say, oh, Tim Kaine's going to win re-election, it's a blue state, whatever. It doesn't sound like it anymore. Eddie, talk about why, Glenn Youngkin said it yesterday in a speech. He said Virginia's in play because of his victory, because, the conservative principles are finally trickling down. People are watching this unending mania towards chasing President Trump around in courtrooms, and people are starting to walk away from traditionally Democratic Party voters, are starting to walk away and say, well, who are some of these other guys in here? Is that helping your campaign to make the case as a guy who's never been in this position before?
Well, I think it's helping my campaign make the case for me, because if we want President Trump to win the Commonwealth of Virginia, we need somebody standing shoulder to shoulder with him that can talk about the issues that affect Virginians. I mean, I've been on the campaign trail for 16 months. I got a lot of coalitions built across all 11 congressional districts, to include the Valley and the Southwest, all those small towns that we talked about. The turnout historically has not been what it should be there, and I make the case. I do not blame those voters. I believe we need to have a candidate and a party at the federal level that takes their priorities into consideration. We have to protect our farmers. We have to protect our ranchers. We can't let them be squeezed by the EPA and the FDA, and then at the same time, these multinational corporations that are coming in trying to buy up farmland and then throw solar panels on them just so they can go right back to the government and ask for subsidies for green energy. And then we lose that farmland for a generation, for 100 years. These are things, and that's just one example, but there are an endless number of examples that specifically affect small towns, that specifically affect the Valley and the Southwest and South side of VA, that I've been talking with community leaders about, and regular people about, the things that affect them. Standing shoulder to shoulder with President Trump as we get across these areas will generate a massive turnout. If we want people to vote for us, Joe, we have to actually prioritize the things they care about. We have a national party that doesn't even promise to do anything anymore. They don't even promise to take our considerations anymore. All they do is say that they're going to stop things, don't do things, fight things, but it never actually say how they're going to help us, help our lives get better. So Virginia's in play. I believe it, even in Northern Virginia. And then when it comes to President Trump, and he's got a lot of haters in Northern Virginia. But I tell you what, in Northern Virginia, there's a lot of landscapers. There's a lot of bartenders and waiters. There's a lot of construction workers that work here in these big cities that can't afford to live here. They're going to be Garcia voters. And I believe when they're Garcia voters, they're going to be Donald Trump voters too. And so if we want to win elections, we have to add people. We got to add, we got to multiply. We can't divide, we can't subtract. And I'm the only candidate that has been talking about this. I'm going to be real strong with young people coming out of college. I'm going to be real strong because I'm 42 years old, so I'm not one of these octogenarians that are up there in D.C. right now.
Hey, easy on us old people, Eddie. I'm trying to keep up with you here.
You're not in the throes of power, trying to hold on to your dying breath, Joe. So I don't mind that. but I'm going to be strong with young people. I'm going to be strong with the 770,000 veterans here in the Commonwealth as a 22-year Army veteran. And I'm going to be strong with minorities. I'm going to be strong with Hispanics, 11% of the population. We see, to your point, we see this trend nationally of the Hispanic community, the African-American men community walking away from Democrats. But that doesn't mean they're walking towards us. We got to have a messenger that can carry a message of conservative values for the long term. If we take advantage of that now, while it's there, we can rebuild this party. We can revitalize this party with new voters for the future generations. If we don't, they just might sit this one out, and then 2028 comes around. 2028 comes around, and Gavin Newsom or whatever might win them all back.
Oh my
so
gosh.
it's important.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
important.
Don't scare me with phrases like that. Eddie Garcia is on with us, running for the GOP nomination. Voting is continuing right now, all the way up till June 18th. You mentioned the border real quick, Eddie, and I know you've probably got a full slate of things to do this morning, and I appreciate you calling into the show. And you mentioned the border. The Senate is promising a vote on their version of the border bill, which really just seems to fund more travel agents, not border agents. And take me through what you're seeing, because the House Freedom Caucus has said, please vote on HB 2 or HR 2, the one they passed, which just shuts the border down and says no more of this stuff, back to stay in Mexico and that kind of thing. What are you seeing, and what would Senator Garcia do? And then we'll let you get going here.
When it comes to the border, there are a few things that we should be doing. First and foremost, we got to fund the 1,300-mile border wall. Donald Trump asked for that 7 years ago. The Republicans in the Senate and the House said it was too much money. 7 years later, we spent hundreds of billions of dollars, and the problem is worse than ever. We have to fund the border wall across the southern border, anywhere that we're able to build it. That's first and foremost. Second, we have to start legislating. We can't give it to executive action. We need to legislate remain in Mexico. Up front, point blank, period. Right now, the way our asylum laws and our refugees laws are set is that if someone comes into a port of entry and claims asylum, reads a script and says, hey, I'm here because of persecution, the executive has all the power. The president can choose to detain them or grant them parole. When Trump was in office, he detained them first on our side, and you got a bunch of outrage because of the cages and whatnot, and then he instituted remain in Mexico so that they stay elsewhere. And then when Biden comes in, he grants them parole, and then they don't show up for 5-6 years, if ever. So we have to legislate detention and remain in Mexico, remain outside of America. So in Mexico or Canada, you can't come and hang around and while your asylum claim is being adjudicated here in America. We have to temporarily fund strong asylum judges appointed by Donald Trump with the new administration. We need to triple the number of strong asylum judges so that we can process all of these claims. 95% of them are false claims. We got to get them back to where they come from to reduce this backlog that's currently 5 or 6 years long. We could do these things. Our border problem, our border process should be very simple. We should be able to easily let in the people that we need in America to work. I mean, we just talked about small towns and valleys, right? You can follow the migrant farmers or the pickers from Florida all the way up to Virginia throughout the season. It should make it easy to bring in the people that we want. It should be easy to keep out the people that we don't. It also should be very easy to know which is which and make sure they're vetted with biographical data so they can come in and back and forth, because not everybody stays. I'm a simple man. I believe in simple solutions. We're talking about a border. We're not talking about calculus. We can keep in the people we want and keep out the people we don't.
We have been for a couple hundred years, I think, Eddie. Eddie Garcia, thank you, sir. I appreciate you jumping in with us and being on the area. You're going to be in the area anytime soon. I know, generally it's, where are we? Or where are we going? It's I don't know how far in advance you know your schedule, but if you're in the area this Memorial Day weekend, look us up. And you with military service, thoughts on those who gave all, so we can still, sit here and go online and have these discussions and open up a newspaper and see what somebody's answering for?
Well, as a 22-year Army veteran, I have nothing but respect for anybody who's worn the uniform, and especially for those who have lost their lives. I mean, I've had friends lose their life in Afghanistan. My grandfather, my fathers have friends who have never came home from their when they were at war. It's an important time. They should be prioritized. We should all kind of take a moment to reflect on the freedoms that we have, thanks to people who are willing to give it all. And this weekend is a perfect time for that. And so if I'm in the area, I would definitely let you know. I'm going to be
Great.
swinging through there at some point really quickly. I'm spending the next few days down in the Southwest, down in Pulaski and Salem and Christiansburg, Blacksburg, Radford City. I'll be down that way, but maybe I can swing on back through, and I'd love to be in studio or something if you got time, Joe.
Absolutely. We got new digs to christen. I'm still dusting them, but that's okay.
Okay.
Eddie Garcia, thank you for jumping in and taking a shot with us and talking about this story breaking. But you have a great morning. Happy for our lives that were won by those tragically who didn't come back. But have a good Memorial Day weekend, sir.
Thank you, Joe. You too. Pleasure.
434-882-4217 is how you do it, and you can join in on the conversation on this subject, which is, if you're joining us in progress, one of Mr. Garcia's opponents, Hung Cao, told a podcaster in New York City while he was on his video show, very much like this program, Alec Mace, he said to him when the host asked him about the issue regarding his political action committee, which didn't give any of the money to 2023 candidates, he said, instead of answering the question, he said, I'm not going to be answering every question from every podunk newspaper that has a question. And I think that says multiple things in there. Let's get back to you real quick before we head to our updates here at the top of the hour. But let me see who we've got at 434-882-4217. See, this is what everyone's saying. This is like live radio again with call-ins and stuff like that. Good morning. Who's this?
Hey, Joe, it's Clark.
Hey, good morning, Clark. How are you doing, sir?
I'm great, Joe. So, to expand on your conversation with Mr. Garcia, Hung Cao, and I'm not a resident of Staunton, but I do live in the foothills of the Appalachians in the reddest area in one of the redder states. I could tell you about Podunkians, okay?
Podunkians. Enter that into our lexicon, Podunkians.
Yes. I know the Podunkian mind. So, Hung Cao, in fairness to him, he just said what every member of the Uniparty, every person in the mainstream media, and all the coastal elites think. Everything from New York down to North Virginia, or Northern Virginia, and then over to the coast is Podunk. Now, Hung Cao might not even know that Podunk people are allowed to vote.
Well, he certainly probably doesn't think they vote in very large numbers anyway. Nose counts, right?
Podunk people, they're not going to know when there's an election. We're all good. Don't worry about it. That's the attitude that we have to deal with, Joe. And, I know he specifically said it, but he's representative of a much larger attitude, don't you think?
Well, and beyond that, as I said, I think it hands Tim Kaine this opportunity to roll up his. And Tim Kaine will never miss an opportunity to roll up his Brooks Brothers shirt sleeves and take his necktie off and stand in a factory with guys in hard hats, and watch them and say, "This is where America is, and this is what my opponent doesn't get, and this is the heartbeat of Virginia." And I mean, we're just handing him this softball that's going to allow him to not appear to be the D.C. elite that he's been for all of his years, paid for by George Soros in all his years in office.
So as soon as Tim Kaine starts talking that yang, you cue the Jerry Jeff Walker. The pot can't call the kettle black, and the train still runs on the same old track.
Good stuff. It is true. Dr. Clark, I appreciate it, sir, and thank you for your thought on this representing. And you grew up in Podunk, Virginia, right? You know a little, not just where you are now in Alabama, but you know a little bit about Virginia.
I have spent some time in the great state of Virginia.
And we appreciate it as always. Thank you, sir. You have a great morning.
Take care.
Our rain-free weather comes to an end after today, but boy, it'll be sunny and hot for your Wednesday afternoon highs just shy of 90. We'll call it 88 degrees. Wednesday night, partly cloudy and 67. Thursday, chance of showers and thunderstorms most likely in the afternoon, partly sunny and 84. Thursday night, showers and scattered thunderstorms, overnight lows in the mid-60s. By Friday, 50-50 shot at some showers and storms, mostly sunny and 85. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now, back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning, and thank you for doing what you do by downloading the Rumble app or the YouTube app and tuning in, whether it be live broadcast or in reruns, like William Shatner. I live in reruns there and want the third alternative. Gentlemen, risk is our business. And risky as it may be, we're going to pivot off, and we have reached out to all the participants, including Captain Cow, regarding this issue. We're going to put a pin in it. If you're joining us in process, the story that's our friends at the News Leader in Staunton were disparaged on a New York City-based podcast. Hung Cow was on this Alec Mace podcast and was asked about this story, which ran back in April, regarding the political action committee that he used as a reason to get into the news all through 2023, not giving any money to actual 2023 candidates. And when asked about it by this Alec Mace guy, he said, I'm not going to answer all these questions from Podunk newspaper.
Love us if you can, sorry if you can't, holler if you is, shut up if you ain't. Ho, 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 ho.
So with that in mind, you can certainly make comment on that, 434-882-4217. But there's other things afoot, a lot of primaries. We're in the midst of this Senate primary. We're also in the midst of House of Representatives campaign primaries, Democrat and Republican, that will be culminating on June 18th here in the Commonwealth. And, blink of an eye. I mean, that's not even a month away. We're talking about a couple of weeks till that culminates. But there were primaries all across the area, including the special election, though the primary in California for the replacement of Kevin McCarthy. There you see Tommy Massey won his primary election, and a Georgia Supreme Court justice beat the abortion argument that abortion is a winning campaign issue for it. And I want to pick up on Tommy Massey because I think it has some indications to what's going on here in the Commonwealth, because when Tommy Massey was part of the vacate the chair movement, and he was facing folks who wanted to oust him over the vacate the chair movement there, and we're seeing that manifest here in Virginia, both in the 5th District, where Congressman Good, along with Congressman Massey, was part of the motion to vacate. I want my MTV. And okay, I won't do that again. But along with Tommy Massey, and he faced and fended off his primary opponent, who was also funded a lot by McCarthy, the McCarthy campaign, to oust and to have punitive damages on this member. So I don't know if it makes some indication of what could go on in the race, but the McCarthy did support the fellow Fong in California, who is going to fill his role in there. Also in Charlottesville, you may have heard there used to be a statue of Robert E. Lee in Charlottesville. And you may have heard the story of Robert E. Lee in Charlottesville. No, you haven't heard. Wow, you may be the only one. So there was the statue of Robert E. Lee in Charlottesville, and after a horrific shooting in a church in Charleston, South Carolina, the mayor and the vice mayor of the city of Charlottesville inserted themselves into the story by saying, "This is why we need to take down these Confederate monuments, these war memorials," as it was proven and covered under Virginia law as a war memorial. We had Virginia courts anointed as a war memorial. But yesterday was the 100th anniversary of the erection. Oh, that was badly said, of the installation of the Robert E. Lee statue in what is now called McIntyre Park, not McIntyre Park, it's Market Street Park there, and became the flashpoint after that statement of a lot of people sponsored by David Duke, who I find to be reprehensible as well, who came to Charlottesville. I was there. I still have clothes that smell like pepper spray for a riot on July 11th and 12th of 2017, and you'll see many of the same particulars here in this piece from Market Street Park now.
I'm really proud of us for taking the opportunity to dare ourselves to be in a space that literally 100 years ago, many of us wouldn't have been welcomed in, for winning a fight that a lot of people thought we never would win.
100 years ago, a statue of Robert E. Lee was erected here in Market Street Park. 8 years ago, a petition was started to take that statue down. 3 years ago, it was taken down, and Tuesday night, the group Swords into Plowshares reclaimed and used the space. They reflected on the troubled history of Lee, the statue, and talked about the next set of history, turning the now melted Lee statue into a new public work of art.
It was a way of marking certain ostensibly public spaces as having, narratives that were seen as representative of that space and by extension of the whole community. Removing the statue and by transforming it into something that can tell a story about all of us.
Swords into Plowshares hopes to have a new artwork unveiled by 2027. At the middle of this year, they want to pick the artist. A survey is open for the public to pick where they think the future artwork should go. There is still no decision on what the artwork will be.
100 years ago, several, like I can probably count on my two hands, very kind of wealthy white individuals from this community decided that they wanted a statue and they wanted it placed here. You know what I mean? And then it was kind of a top-down decision. So we're really, part of what we're doing here is we're really trying to make it a bottom-up.
So that young lady who seemed to be very sketchy on specifics for most of that piece from our friends at CBS 19 is the UVA professor that they tasked with doing the research. So you would have thought she would have few more details on the history of Robert E. Lee's statue. It's certainly, important in the story of Robert E. Lee and his statues, or the fact that Robert E. Lee didn't think that statues to generals were a good idea. He himself had said that. But what is lost in all of this is this narrative while all those folks in the park are all part of an organization, the Swords to Plowshares group, that broke several Virginia laws and have not been held momentarily accountable for all the Virginia laws that they broke. But if you were inside, say, the U.S. Capitol building without an invitation from a member of the House or Senate on January 6th, you've been in jail for, a year and a half, 2 years. But these folks broke numerous Virginia laws in taking this statue away to a smelting shop and invited a Washington Post photographer so that they have exclusive look at us. We're melting it anyway. And they weren't supposed to. Again, we're talking about a bunch of people who flaunted Virginia law under populism. Oh, nobody's going to say anything to us because if you say anything to us, you will be a racist. And I spent 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and then COVID came. I've spent all of those years battling this idea that I, or you, I presume, had anything in common with the people under the white sheets that were out there for the David Duke reunion concert in Charlottesville. And certainly the internet is full of people who will tell you what happened in Charlottesville. I was listening to my Spotify playlist, and the song London Calling came on from The Clash, and I was there, and some of it was true. There's always get a little bits to watch it on TV. But I was there at the corner of 4th and Market Street, and I watched what this conflagration became, because the folks who came that Saturday and that Friday to riot came to make themselves popular. And you saw Wes Bellamy in that video clip there. He was one of those folks who built himself quite a career on the backs of a lot of people, including some dead state troopers and an activist, grievously injured people, all in this riot that was fomented by the head of the Virginia Department of Emergency Management. Everyone blames Charlottesville's police chief at the time. That's a lie as well, because the Charlottesville police chief had been removed from operational control on Thursday by Governor McAuliffe. And the Virginia Department of Emergency Management eschewed the plan to get David Duke and his followers out of the park, and decided, you know what, let's put them on the street with the Antifa and Black Lives Matter people. What do you think could happen then? The EM, by the way, in VDEM is for emergency management, and they did a very, very bad job of managing the emergency. But I'm going to bring this and tie it in to this following story of a young man who is suing the University of Virginia for, again, facing hatred on the UVA grounds.
Over 2 weeks since the chaos broke out on UVA grounds, university officials are facing a civil action lawsuit. The plaintiff is first-year student Matan Goldstein. You can see him here at a demonstration on grounds on October 25th. He was supporting Israel in the face of pro-Palestinian protests. Goldstein is alleging that UVA officials, including President Jim Ryan, Rector Robert Hardy, Faculty for Justice in Palestine at UVA, and Students for Justice in Palestine at UVA are responsible for the alleged harassment, discrimination, and illegal retaliation against people of the Jewish faith. The allegations include a physical assault during a pro-Palestine event on grounds, verbal abuse at the hands of student and faculty groups mentioned in the suit, continued social media posts by the groups that were meant to intimidate Jewish students. Those posts were also hung on doors of lawn rooms. In fact, Goldstein says it got so bad that he had to leave his first-year dorm room because he felt it was unsafe for him on grounds, and the university encouraged him to do so. The lawsuit goes on to claim that Ryan and Hardy, quote, did nothing to stop the problems. Fox Virginia News reached out to the University of Virginia and was told there would be no comment, but the university is against anti-Semitic behavior. There is no dollar figure listed in the suit, but Goldstein is seeking damages as decided by a jury.
So I bring this up with irony in my heart, because this is the same manifestation. This is the same UVA grounds where all the Tiki Torch protesters of July 11th, 2017, the warm-up day, the tailgate party for the David Duke reunion concert they were going to hold on July 12th, 2017, reprehensible, ugly statements regarding the Jewish community, people of color, various ethnicities, marching through the ground, engaging in some hateful speech. I'm not going to deny that they did, because I had nothing to do with it, because I ain't them. But Joe, this began a spiral into if you're against them, you must be with them. I found what Wes Bellamy and Kristen Sakis were building their political careers on this narrative of getting rid of the Confederate memorials was reprehensible as well. So just because I was against what they were doing doesn't mean I was with the David Duke reunion concert. But this is the same university that went after Richard Spencer and all these other folks in the David Duke tailgate party on July 11th, 2017, now out there saying, oh, but they didn't mean anything about, killing Jews or anything like that in this. It's about decolonization. That's what it's about. The hypocrisy is waist deep. Memorial Day is a time to celebrate those who gave it all so we can have it all here in the United States. And we celebrate in Earlysville on Monday morning as we broadcast live on the new WTON from the Earlysville preparations for their Memorial Day celebration, which will happen shortly before 9 o'clock. And join us for that. We'll have first free coffee for those, and that's the name of the coffee shop, not that you first come, first serve, won't get free. We'll also have some goodies for you to win and some bumper stickers as well as we broadcast live from Earlysville for Memorial Day on the new WTON radio.
Our rain-free weather comes to an end after today, but boy, it'll be sunny and hot for your Wednesday afternoon highs just shy of 90. We'll call it 88 degrees. Wednesday night, partly cloudy and 67. Thursday, chance of showers and thunderstorms, most likely in the afternoon, partly sunny and 84. Thursday night, showers and scattered thunderstorms, overnight lows in the mid-60s. By Friday, 50-50 shot at some showers and storms, mostly sunny and 85. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now, back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning. Thank you for tuning in, and Mac McDonald joining us from his notebook studios there. It is good to see you again, Brother Mac. How are you doing, sir? Yeah,
I'm doing good, Joe.
The notebook is real. The notebook is real.
Yeah, the notebook lives. I'm rooting for Rick. Okay, I'm rooting for Rick Carlisle. I'm rooting for the Pacers. And I remember last night, I remembered old Pete Gillen saying, I used to always, if I saw Pete in the hallway or out on the grounds, I'd say, "Hey, Pete, how's everything?" He goes, "I'm just trying to get the ball in bounds." And so last night, the Pacers, Rick Carlisle and his players were forthright explaining the overtime loss to the Celtics. We gave it away. 133-128, the overtime dub for Boston, game one of the Eastern Conference Finals. Indiana had 22 turnovers. Boston got 32 points off those mistakes. A 3-point lead, 10 seconds to go. Pacers lead. The biggest mistake came with an errant inbounds pass in the backcourt. Pascal Siakam could not handle it, booted it out of bounds, which set up the tying three by Jaylen Brown. Now, the Celtics ran a play from the baseline, and the Pacers could not foul in time. You want to foul in that situation, not giving them a chance to shoot a three. But Brown had his shoulders squared and ready to pull the trigger, and Siakam did. Well, I didn't want to, what happens? Head coach Rick Carlisle, post-game, taking the blame.
The way our guys fought in this game, this loss is totally on me. With 10 seconds in regulation, we should have just taken the timeout, advanced the ball, and found a way to get it in and made a free throw or two and ended the game. It didn't happen, and we made some other mistakes, but our guys just need to concentrate on fighting the way they fought in this game from start to finish, and we'll be back Thursday.
The Pacers became the first team since at least 1998 to lose a playoff game despite inbounding the ball up 3 in the final 10 seconds while eating snow cones in the lobby. Highest scoring conference finals game since 83. Wow. Indiana had 7 players in double figures, first time in the postseason. Jason Tatum at 36. And as Rick said, we'll see you Thursday night. Mavs, Minnesota tonight. It's going to be an interesting series, too. All right, ACC baseball tournament in Charlotte. Miami beats Louisville 8-5. Georgia Tech, UVA's opponent today at 11 a.m., lost to Florida State 12-9, and Duke toppled Virginia Tech 11-8. UVA's Brian O'Connor knows full well it's the end of May. So what this tournament is important. Yes, you want the ACC hardware, but it's now time to build a resume.
You're also building your resume for, the selection show on Monday to put your team in the best possible position, whether that be a number 1 seed or whether that be to host an NCAA regional or try to be a top 8 national seed. So, what you get rewarded on Monday is a result of what you do the entire year, but this is also part of it as well.
Absolutely. Yep. Left-hander Evan Blanco gets the ball today for the Who's. The Jackets will go with Aiden Finateri, who has an ERA of 6.12. That does not sit well. The Cavs have a little Uncle Mo. They've won 8 of the last 10. This offense, and we probably haven't talked about it enough, maybe we have, the Cavalier offense ranks in the top 5 nationally in 6 different categories. Wow. All of a sudden, I look like a legislator. Hits, batting average, and scoring. UVA averages 9.6 runs per game.
Averages.
Wow.
There's a lot of ERAs that took a paddling.
5.
Oh my gosh.
Top 5 in 6 categories. So all that looks great on paper. So hopefully they don't throw up on their shoes today. Anyway, 11 o'clock. Twins rip the Nats 10-0. Orioles and Cards are tied 1-1. No, they're not still playing, but they will. The game was suspended in the 6th. They will play today. Yankees lose to the Mariners again, 6-3. Red Sox beat the Rays 5-2. New York has a 1.5 lead over Baltimore, 7.5 over Boston. We just like to look at those standings from time to time. Phillies beat the Rangers 5-2. Bryson. The guy with the beard.
Bryce Harper.
Yeah, Bryce Harper.
Not Bryson DeChambeau.
I threw me completely. Harper went yard. Mets have lost 7 of the last 9. They lost 7-6 to Cleveland. I just thought Joe wouldn't want to hear that.
Well, no, I understand that, but I still find myself rooting for the Nationals, and I still find it interesting that after all the troubles they've had, they're still 3rd place in the National League East. So I'm like, wow, the rest of this league doesn't want to win anything, and it's just let's watch Atlanta and Philadelphia. But,
let's see what we can pull off. All right, you're gonna love this because now Louisville police.
Oh, no.
Are having meetings to decide. Well, they've got internal affairs now on the Scotty Scheffler case.
Internal affairs? You mean like they would be looking into dirty cops?
And not so much dirty, protocol. So it's not dirty, it's protocol. So Brian Gillis is the officer who was dragged, and he did not have his body camera activated. Now, that apparently is I'm not a professional law enforcement, but apparently the body cam is something you got to turn on immediately. According to Louisville Metro Police policy, officers have to turn it on, right?
Okay.
So Gillis didn't have the camera on. So now the Louisville staffers and police say, look, it's critical that our officers understand these high profile events. Oh, really?
Yeah. This isn't the first one of these, and this is certainly not even the biggest one of these to hit the Louisville
let's
Police
not worry
Department.
about the guy being killed by a bus. Let's not do anything with the media with that. We're not going to tell the media anything about that. We're worried about Scotty Scheffler and a couple of charges, which he could write a check today for. But the internal investigation is still ongoing. Now, we told you last week, of course, it's been pushed back to June 3rd now. Scotty's attorney has been terrific. His arraignment was going to be Tuesday, but now, June 3rd. And we all know the story about, him being arrested and so on and so forth. So the Mets, it'll give sports talking heads, a little time today to sort this all out. But there is an internal affairs investigation.
I mean, to be fair, it is most of these communities now have body cam policies that say you've got to have it on. You can't. It isn't on all the time because there's a storage issue and that kind of thing. But that when you go into a situation, you're supposed to turn your body camera on. And I hope this doesn't turn into one of these sideshows that just continue to embroil. I mean,
we don't need that at golf too, because now the McElroy divorce, the word is, and I got it from a source, that Amanda Bolanos, who does the interviews for CBS, the reporter, apparently Rory and Amanda are becoming an item. And so now that's
the in-depth interview that she got was more than just an in-depth interview.
And if that's not enough, just for you, last night, Greg Olson, whose brother played at UVA, was quarterback for a cup of coffee. All right, Greg Olson was honored by the Sports Emmys on Tuesday night. He won in the category of Outstanding Personality, Event Analyst category. So.
Okay.
By now, that's really good. He's being replaced by Tom Brady. Thank you, Fox.
Yeah.
Here's
your award. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Brady's getting $375 million to be a part of Fox, and Gary Olson goes, "Well, here's my trophy. I'd like to thank you very much for my being outstanding personality, but now I'm going to be looking for a job."
Yeah.
So,
I wonder how soon that shows up on Etsy, trying to raise a couple of bucks for him.
I know.
That's I thought you were going to bring up the Jennifer Lopez Ben Affleck situation, because you had hit all the other salacious stories out there.
My wife never misses a Ben Affleck headline. She told me last night when we were having dinner. As I said, we have no kitchen. The drama continues. So last night we bought, there's these ice machines because we had no ice. I love ice water. I drink ice water all day long. I take it in my car. They have these ice machines. Okay. It was like bringing home a new puppy. So my wife, you have to let it sit for a while out of the box. You have to get it fired up, and then you can put water in it after like a couple hours. I don't know. The parts have to get ready to work. You plug it in. It made more noise last night than any a human being making ice would not have made as much noise as this ice machine. Clank, clank, turn, turn. It sounded like ice was being thrown all over our house.
Wait. Is this the ice maker that Emmett Brown made in Back to the Future 3?
Maybe
it's the steam powered.
It looks like a small Keurig.
Oh my God!
It's the size of a Keurig.
That's funny.
Very nice, stainless steel, little plastic top, little scoops. Got a little scoop for your ice. So I said we were so excited. It was like bringing home a little puppy. We were so happy to bring home this because
we will have ice.
I get ice this morning. I have ice this morning. It's so excited. Well. It may not be in our house very long.
He has no sleep. He has
no
sleep, but he has lots of ice. But I was thinking, this is a sports-related story, the Ben Affleck, Jennifer Lopez thing, because I'm sure that the whole Dunkin' Donuts ad that they did during the Super Bowl is the cause of this. is that that she didn't get the run out of it that she thought she would, and and believe me, this was supposed to be her time. She'd be coming out with the new album and everything else, and all of a sudden Ben and Matt Damon steal it by bringing Tom Brady into a Super Bowl ad, and I'll bet you that started it. I bet you after the Super Bowl, Ben slept on the couch.
Tick. Tick. That's the clock ticking before that story breaks.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
So,
that's it. Well, and
what else would we have to talk about if we didn't have this? I mean, sports gets. I don't want to say it gets boring, but anyway, tomorrow we'll start to dive in lacrosse Final Four weekend for Lars.
Baseball,
and,
right? Yeah.
And company. Lars is being Lars. I love him to death. God, he's such a motivator.
And then we'll have the baseball results. So we'll
and then we'll have the ACC. Yeah, so I've got to be on campus today. We have the Hall of Fame weekend. It's a big Hall of Fame thing at Full Sail in Winter Park, and we have a big Hall of Fame thing today.
Good.
So I don't really have to teach, but
Greg Olson's not getting a Hall of Fame.
No, he's not. It's Full Sail Hall of Fame. It's
okay, very good.
Yeah. So anyway, it's going to be fun. But we'll have more for you tomorrow, and also I'm gonna watch the Virginia game today on my phone probably.
All right. Well, give us a full report in the morning, and thank
I
you,
will.
sir.
I'll have it for you tomorrow morning, JoJo. As always, back to my ice machine. I'll see if there's any ice on the floor.
Joe Thomas. Join us Saturday morning at Gypsy Hill Park for Vets for Vets to raise money for the VFW in Staunton. Gypsy Hill Park, 10 a.m. It's not just Corvettes. Whatever your ride is, whether it's Mopar or a Mustang or even a hot hatchback, something that you drift with, come on down and show it off at Gypsy Hill Park. It's a $10 admission fee for your car. Dash plaques for the first 200 cars that join in on the celebration. There'll be music, food, and a live broadcast from me, Joe Thomas, in the morning. Gypsy Hill Park to kick off the Memorial Day weekend with Vets for Vets to raise money for the VFW in Central Virginia. Join us there at Gypsy Hill Park starting at 10 with Joe Thomas in the morning.
Our rain-free weather comes to an end after today, but boy, it'll be sunny and hot for your Wednesday afternoon highs just shy of 90. We'll call it 88 degrees. Wednesday night, partly cloudy and 67. Thursday, chance of showers and thunderstorms, most likely in the afternoon, partly sunny and 84. Thursday night, showers and scattered thunderstorms, overnight lows in the mid-60s. By Friday, 50-50 shot at some showers and storms, mostly sunny and 85. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now, back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning. Thank you for joining in, doing what you do, which is in some cases call in and opine. If you missed the story earlier in the program, there's a maelstrom flying around the U.S. Senate race for the GOP, as one of the folks was on a New York City-based internet show, very much like this one, and told the host when asked about a political action committee story that had him not giving any of the money he collected from his political action committee to the candidates in 2023, as he professed. He said, I'm not going to answer all these questions from some podunk newspaper. Of course, that is the Staunton news leader there, and several things on that.
If you can, sorry if you can't, holler if you is, shut up if you ain't. Ho, 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 ho. Podunk!
just insisting on trying to get in trouble with YouTube for that. Fair use, short clip, and it's in relevance to the story of this Podunk comment, which if there's some algorithm at YouTube watching us here, as you see right there in the headline, Podunk. So it is relevant there, and it is relevant to the story there. But so we can get back into that. We've reached out to some of the other folks running for the Senate nomination. I want to pick up a couple other stories that we had here on for you. Obviously, the Centennial celebration, the reclaiming of Lee Park. A couple of quick points in the Lee Park story. That the area that was Robert E. Lee Park, where the Robert E. Lee statue was, now called Market Street Park, was a house. It was a big house. Family died away and nobody wanted it, so it was going to be torn down. And we don't know why, but Paul Goodloe McIntyre helped raise money to build a park there rather than have another house there. And that's one of those bits of Charlottesville history that begs to have some greater depth of it, because given how the end of Robert E. Lee's statue came about, the reasonings for building a park there rather than another house, especially in a town that even then probably was having a housing crisis, is interesting, but there is very little about that. There's also this from, and I know you weren't watching The View yesterday, but Bill Maher from HBO, the comedian, was on basically because they find people who don't talk the left-wing narrative, and then they put them in there in the hot seat. It was like, but Bill Maher and Joy Behar, both of about the same age, coming up through stand-up comedy together. There was a point when Joy Behar was funny. I think she still believes she is, but she admitted this yesterday live on The View.
So, but I'm nervous about saying anything against Biden because I feel, not that I have so much power, and you have some more than I do, obviously. But
I don't know about that.
Are you afraid that you might, influence people who are on the fence?
I think you lose all credibility. I do. I mean, my bond with my audience has always been I don't pull a punch.
Yeah.
My bond with my audience is you're not going to like everything I say,
yeah,
but I'm saying what I really think is true.
Right.
That's.
Right.
Yeah. And look, Biden just presents as old. It's not really fair.
No.
Because he's almost the same age. Trump is almost the same age as him.
I know.
But Trump doesn't present that way. You look at somebody right away, you can kind of just sum them up. I mean, we are not young, but we don't present as old.
Yeah.
Biden does. I saw him yesterday making that speech.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, he's cadaver-like.
But his brain is good.
So, first, the admission that, here is somebody who is a member of the commentariat, and that is a phrase that I believe my friend Sean Kenny invented when he was working for Bearing Drift magazine, the commentariat. I like the phrase because it refers to people like me who think our position as opinion makers is beyond the scope of just staying inside our craniums. And rather than serving you, we act like these politicians that we're here to tell you what you think. And that's how the politicians view us as well, is that we're the ones that, and so you hear that in Joy Behar. Well, I don't want to say anything bad about President Biden. Why? Why not? Can you not say something bad about the sitting president of the United States? Meanwhile, spokesperson for Donald Trump is saying they're going to sue this filmmaker who debuted a film in Cannes called The Apprentice, in which this documentary done in, I guess, as I read the story, I haven't seen any clips of it, is done in sort of this film noir style taken from the Pulp Fiction. That's what the reporter who saw the film said. It's reminiscent of Pulp Fiction, but it's about Roy Cohn, who is a figure that pops up in history all the way through the red hunts of Joe McCarthy, Before there was a Kevin McCarthy, there was a Joe McCarthy. And the McCarthy hearings, and then through the Nixon administration, resurfaces.
But I'm nervous
again,
about saying.
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring that. There was no need for that one. But the back again during the Nixon administration, and apparently for this documentary's purposes. I guess it's a depiction of historical extrapolations that Roy Cohn originally saw Donald Trump as an apprentice to him, and the allegations Trump's campaign is saying that they are going to sue because it's a complete fabrication. I guess they're playing in this world of, it's art. But something Bill Maher said in that clip also, I think, is illuminative for us here in the commentariat. It's not your truth. It is the truth. And as a comedian, you're allowed to take things that you find, and again, I'm an armchair comedian. I'll make fun of things that I think need to be lampooned. But as I see them, and I'll pull them in, and then somebody will call and say, well, that's not exactly what happened, Joe. As Matt said during his phone call earlier on, he said, what did Hung Cow actually say? I'm not going to play the Alex Mace podcast. That's like looking into a mirror at a barbershop. It's a podcast playing a podcast of a podcast, and it goes back and forth, and you start to get dizzy after a bit. But it is what it is. And there are people who have emailed me, this one, for example, Don, who said, there is too much political nonsense going on regarding the word podunk. Hung Cow is right. The Republican Party of Virginia, his email to us, he's out there receiving this just like you are, spends too much time on rural voters. If we want to win elections, we need to win that sickle, as you call it, Joe, from Northern Virginia down, and stop pandering to people in Staunton. The Staunton news leaders just trying to make themselves famous by having a minor league, his words, not mine, minor league Woodward and Bernstein moment. I bring up the question, regardless of how you feel about the Staunton news leader or Staunton, Virginia in an abstract. The issue is whether a political office representative is above reproach. Joy Behar saying, I don't say anything about it. I'm President Biden. I leave him alone. Why? He's president of the United States, albeit an office that holds way too much power right now, a point that you and I have discussed at time in memoriam. But beyond that, all of these folks, and we have to stop pretending that we're, some adjunct press secretary for some political party. The truth is the truth. So when Bill Maher talks about his truth and his view of the truth, well, as a comedian, you're allowed to do that. As a member of the commentariat, you might want to have more in the way of facts going on there. Good morning. You're on the air with Joe Thomas in the morning. Who's this?
Good morning, sir. I was just replying to. This is JT. I've called a few times.
Sure, JT. Good to hear from you again.
Yes, sir. Good to find you. And I just wanted to say, with that logic, let's just get Charlottesville, Northern Virginia, Richmond, and Norfolk to vote for the rest of us. But I don't think that's a state that I would want to live in. And honestly, if we did the states in an electoral fashion like we did our national election, you may find that majority of the state by county would be misrepresented by the outcomes most of our local elections.
Oh, certainly you see it, and again, it goes back into why I asked the question earlier. What is it the government is supposed to be doing? So when you see poverty, when you see housing costs and grocery costs all growing outside of our reach, JT, the feeling is somebody needs to do something about it, and that's a natural feeling for all of us to have. What happens is the Marxist swoops in and says, I've got a plan, blows the dust off of Karl Marx and says how we'll redistribute all the money here, and that becomes a siren song. So that's kind of how these authoritarians have gotten us to vote away our rights. And one of the things that Donald Trump did that I think is scaring the American Marxist is he went into those cities. I remember in 2016 when he went into Detroit, of all places. I mean, it was Richmond, Norfolk. These cities are Disneyland compared to downtown Detroit. And he went into the churches in Detroit and said, how's this been working for you? And that has to be a question that's asked. It's not personal to say, I hate this person because they've screwed you over. Just point out the fact that, 60 years now, JT, the Great Society started 60 years ago. And what has it gotten us?
We don't even get our roads paved hardly anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So do the simple stuff, and then you'll be able to do the fancy stuff later. Thank you, JT. It's good to hear from you again, my friend.
Oh, thank you, sir. And you have a wonderful day, and I'm so glad to hear your voice again.
Me too. I'm glad to hear your voice as well. Memorial Day is a time to celebrate those who gave it all so we can have it all here in the United States. And we celebrate in Earlysville on Monday morning as we broadcast live on the new WTON from the Earlysville preparations for their Memorial Day celebration, which will happen shortly before 9 o'clock. And join us for that. We'll have first free coffee for those, and that's the name of the coffee shop, not that you first come, first serve, won't get free. We'll also have some goodies for you to win and some bumper stickers as well as we broadcast live from Earlysville for Memorial Day on the new WTON radio.
Our rain-free weather comes to an end after today, but boy, it'll be sunny and hot for your Wednesday afternoon highs just shy of 90. We'll call it 88 degrees. Wednesday night, partly cloudy and 67. Thursday, chance of showers and thunderstorms, most likely in the afternoon, partly sunny and 84. Thursday night, showers and scattered thunderstorms, overnight lows in the mid-60s. By Friday, 50-50 shot at some showers and storms, mostly sunny and 85. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now, back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning. Thank you for basking in this, whether you are Bluetoothing it into your car's stereo system or you're just listening on your smartphone app or you're actually watching in 57-inch HD and you can say, who scratched Joe's nose? That's what happens when you try to give a cat a bath. So 434-882-4217 is the phone number to join in on this. But joining us from the campaign trail, where he is running for the GOP nomination to run for the U.S. Senate against Tim Kaine, is Jonathan Emord. Good morning, Jonathan. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Joe. How are you?
Well, it's been a busy morning, and here I am. I find I bought a radio station in Podunk, at least as one of your opponents for the Senate nomination goes. Did you see this story? Do you know that the story goes back to April, where it was discovered, I guess through some FOIA and some digging, they found that this political action. Unleash America Political Action Committee had not actually given any money to 2023 House or Senate candidates as had been promised. But then when queried about it, Hung Kao said, I don't need to answer questions from Podunk newspapers. So there's a whole lot of levels in here where you can be triggered. But to me, the first thing that jumps off the page is an attitude towards rural Virginia versus urban Virginia. Jonathan, what did you think of when you saw this story?
Well, I think that this sort of condescension is just totally uncalled for and is rather repulsive. Look, Elizabeth Behar, who wrote this, and Behar may be how you pronounce it, I'm not sure, but I only see it in print. She did an outstanding job. This woman has done a service to the people of Virginia because, look, none of us knew of Hung Kao's violation of the public trust. We didn't know that he put a PAC together to raise money for state candidates and then put it all into his own pocket. We didn't know that. And this is profoundly disturbing and really disqualifying because in the end, it threatens not only the candidacy of Kao, which is one thing that is justified based on it, but it tarnishes the whole Republican Party, and it really hurts if he's the nominee because it will tarnish President Trump in Virginia. Indeed, I think it would not only cause a defeat for him, but because the Senate race is a statewide event, it would really hurt President Trump's chances of winning Virginia. So I think what he ought to do is resign, but his candidacy, quit. Mm-hmm. But in addition, he ought to pay that money back. I mean, my goodness, all this cavalier attitude and obfuscation on his part rather than answering specifically the questions asked. The evidence is overwhelming. It's not a situation where it's just a few things. He took this money, put it to his own candidacy when he promised the people of Virginia and the people of the United States that this Unleash America PAC would devote that money to support state candidates, and not 1 cent went to state candidates. He took it all for himself. Now, this is a violation of the law. This not only violates the FEC's rules on coordination, but this is mail fraud, wire fraud, and even money laundering.
Wow.
And we have got to see that this man takes account for what he has done. And if he were mature about this, and I'm afraid he's not, based on this statement, Podunk newspaper. You know, that Staunton news leader is owned by USA Today magazine, and people like that newspaper, and it serves that community. And Staunton is not a Podunk town, and the people in Staunton are not Podunks. And the newspaper is not a Podunk newspaper. I mean, I don't like that language.
Yeah, well,
that's deflection, isn't it? It's deflection. Mm-hmm. Answer the questions. Answer the questions.
Well,
and he hasn't. He has answered them actually on the John Frederick show, and it was an utter disaster, a train wreck of massive proportions, because he not only admitted by failure to deny all of the facts that this reporter identified, which showed that he violated the public trust, but in addition, he went on to say that he took money and paid for airfare for himself and his wife to go to New York to be on Fox News, and made it sound like this independent PAC was his own personal piggy bank.
Yeah,
this is against the law, and I think if this man were the nominee, he would not only be trounced by Kane, because Kane will crow to the, you can see it.
Oh, I can hear the
he would
TV
crow,
ads now, yeah.
Just constant. But the effect of that would be damning for the Republican Party in Virginia, for the chances of congressional candidates writ large, and certainly would do a number on the chances for President Trump. We cannot afford this. This election is it. We have to save our country.
Mm-hmm.
And I am afraid that this sort of thing is just totally unacceptable.
Well, is this something
you cannot rehabilitate a candidate who does something like this, and particularly one who doubles down. I mean, he's doubling down on the criminality, saying, "Oh, it's fine. I didn't do anything wrong. This is a hit job." Well, no, it isn't. These are serious allegations. This goes to whether or not this man can be entrusted to represent people truthfully based on actions that show that he's been untruthful. He told people he would spend that money to support the election of state candidates. He then pocketed it. That is not okay. That's a violation of the public trust. That says that this man thinks that money that is supposed to be by law reserved for a particular purpose that is not a piggy bank can be used as a piggy bank for himself. And I don't know how you overcome that. And I'll tell you, the best thing he could do right now is be in this and quit the race and give that money back to the people who he defrauded. That's what I worry about. All those people, and some of them, based on the way the donations were given, gave money over and over and over again, which begs the question in my mind, how many of these people are actually seniors who were preyed upon? I don't know, but the repeated donation of specific amounts over and over and over again, that's an issue too. But what I want to see in Hung Kao, if he really is a person who loves this country and loves his state, do the right thing here, man. Stand up for what you've done. Recognize that it was wrong. It's under your jurisdiction. Don't try to blame others. You were responsible. Take it on the chops. Quit the race and do the honorable thing and pay back these people. That's what ought to be done, really.
Jonathan,
in the end, I'm worried about them.
Jonathan Emord is on with us, running for the U.S. Senate nomination, and your points are straight on the mark. But I was wondering, and one of the people we've reached out to, and maybe in subsequent programs, we'll talk with Rich Anderson, the chair of the Republican Party of Virginia. It is because if you are the candidate of a party, whether you win a primary or you win a convention, there is a vetting process that when you go onto a ballot, whether it's for president or Senate or Congress, the party is taking a legal position by saying that you are fully qualified to serve in this position. If there are these, as you said, allegations of FEC violations and wire fraud and things like that, has your campaign, or should the Republican Party of Virginia weigh in on this and act proactively, because we're in the middle of this primary? There's only about 3 weeks left of this primary, Jonathan.
Well, I'm really disappointed that this happened at all, and it hurts the Republican Party. And I don't think that there is any easy resolution of this thing. It's not something that can be brushed under the rug, nor should it be. And it's not something the rest of us who are running against him can ignore. We're all upset about this. It's because it's going to really hurt the chances of a Republican winning if he's still on the, if he's on the ballot. And I mean, if he's the nominee. And it will really do a number on Donald Trump. We don't want that. We want Donald Trump to have a person who's strictly in line with him and who does not have baggage like this, which is a distraction from the real goal of all of us, which is to save the country. And I want to fight for that end with everything in my body. And I want to be able to do that with an honorable race and fight like the Dickens against Tim Kaine and make him account. But this is just, the way he responds to this, unfortunately, through obfuscation, through using just ad hominem attacks like hit job and podunk and words like that. That's not answering the issue. That's trying to deflect. The facts are there. They're plain. They're profound. He took money that he said he was going to have expended in his PAC for the state candidates. He took it for himself in his own Senate race. That is not okay. That is misleading. It violates the public trust. And not only that, it really is disqualifying. So I just think that the proper thing for him to do, he doesn't even show up, That's the other thing. He needs to answer to people for this.
Well, yeah, and now I understand why he hasn't returned our repeated requests. He came on right after he announced his candidacy on my old radio show, but since then we've asked time and time, and maybe for the same reason, he looks, and goes on these nationally syndicated shows or shows out, like this Alec Mace show is based in New York, where maybe the money is better, and I guess there's a political expediency to it. But isn't America getting tired of well, we get it, Joe? I got an email earlier from a listener or viewer who was taking the side of the attitude towards rural Virginia, saying that the Republican Party needs to get over this affliction of feeling like rural Virginia needs to be tended to, which I thought was funny, because a lot of people in rural Virginia kind of feel like the Republican Party doesn't do that enough there. But this I'm important, you're not feeling that we get is how you wind up with guys like Senator Menendez, on trial for taking money for selling favors. All of these issues, the George Santos case out of New York. This I'm with the cool kids club has got to be broken down, and we the people have to take this back.
That's right. Got to get rid of this notion that somehow this is a privileged class. My goodness, the Founding Fathers intended for these people who are in elective office to be servants of the people. The second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence makes very clear that governments are instituted among men to protect the rights of the governed, and that just governments derive their power from the consent of the governed. We're supposed to be sovereign in this country. We're not supposed to have these people who go to Washington and make themselves into fiefdoms and kingdoms and turn on us and then condescend. And yes, this attitude of, Podunk newspaper, this thing, that's just stupid. I mean, it's ignorant. The fact is, this newspaper called on him on the carpet with specific facts. This journalist did a service to the people of Virginia. I mean, none of us would have known this. It would have gone by without notice had she not written about it. She did an investigative report. She came up with the specific facts. And then rather than answer to that and be a man about this, he has instead tried to obfuscate, avoid public appearances, and not tell the truth. Just tell the truth. Tell us what you did with the money. Just be honest. And then take the consequences for your actions.
Well, and
the best thing he can do is be responsible. If you truly care about Virginia, if you care about the Republican Party, if you truly care about President Trump's chances of winning Virginia, get out of the way.
Is that?
And take that. And when it comes to the money, my goodness, there are people who gave him money. They entrusted that money to him. He told them over and over again, in newspapers, interviews, and radio and so on, television, that he was going to do with this money to support these candidates for state office to help Governor Youngkin fulfill his mission. And he didn't do that. Instead, he took it for himself. Well, all right, look, give the money back to these people. Give it back to them. It's wrongfully taken by you. Man up, pay them back.
You bring up the winnability of Virginia, and for many years these Senate races kind of were trundled under, and I would bring up things, and there would be issues and things, and people would say, you know what, you're going to lose by 10 points anyway. You're going to lose by 15 points. Tim Kaine, Mark Warner, they're just going to be re-acclimated or re-anointed as the royal senator. But the last two statewide polls in Virginia regarding the presidential race have it 1 point for President Biden or 2 points for President Biden. The state is in play, and I think that impacts the Senate race, don't you?
Absolutely. We can win this thing, and we're going to win big, I think, because, look, we have an underperforming electorate. We have an electorate that doesn't turn out fully. We can raise that by 3 to 6%. We can register 13,000 people in Appalachia, all of whom want Donald Trump to be president, just about. And this needs to be done. And if we do all this on the ground game, and if we attack Kaine for everything he has done and failed to do, it's so outrageous. Kaine is really out of touch with Virginia. and he is totally in touch with President Biden and this far left agenda that's ruining our economy, that's opening our borders and allowing all these criminals and drug traffickers and sex traffickers and so forth to come in with impunity and causing all sorts of harm, not only 130,000 fentanyl deaths last year, 5 fentanyl deaths a day in Virginia, inflation run riot in Virginia. People are having a hard time surviving this economy, particularly those on fixed incomes, particularly those who don't make large sums of money in their jobs. They're barely able to feed their families. They're barely able to make it, let alone there's no chance to save anything. And that's because of Joe Biden and Tim Kaine. And they would rather build an empire for themselves, like you're talking about, and think they have a privileged right to be there. Well, they don't. And it's high time they accounted for what they have done. They've taken the greatest empire of liberty in the world, and they have brought it down. That is unforgivable. They have got to be kicked out. And so I think that the people in Virginia are moving. I've said this all along in this campaign. I've gone all across the state, everywhere. And I have seen this movement. I've seen people who are very quick to say that they cannot take this anymore. And in fact, they are not going to. And I suspect we are going to have a big win in November.
Well, and certainly that will impact the Senate race. I think coattails could go either direction in this, and you guys have been going door to door. Is there any more opportunity? And I imagine the wagons will get circled on this subject matter. But are there any other Senate debates planned in the next 3 weeks where you might be able to hold him accountable for this?
Well, yes, we just had one last night, a huge one in McLean, fantastic Senate debate. Of course, one man wasn't there, Hung Kao, but the rest of us were, and we had a great opportunity to participate and explain our positions. And without a doubt, when I had my opportunity to speak, I took it to Tim Kaine, and I made it clear where he's failing and precisely why. When I'm elected to the United States Senate, I can reverse that direction and support President Trump's agenda, which is going to be a magnificent thing. We are going to witness the greatest resurrection of our great economy and our people's rights that we've ever seen. The Constitution is going to be in the forefront. We are going to see the government change the relationships both domestically and internationally to make America great again, and in a way that is going to be so profoundly beneficial for the typical American citizen. No more will the American citizen be taken advantage of. No more will the illegal alien be raised to the level of superior to an American citizen. America first will be the agenda. We are going to save our country. We're going to restore this nation. And I'm 100% dedicated to that end, and I will do everything in my power to achieve that end. And so I think that we'd rather have a unified ticket with President Trump and with me than one that's going to be fractured and incapable of winning. This is our huge opportunity. This is one that we should not squander. We've got to prevent that from happening. So, yes, I do hope that, the Republican Party does what it needs to do in this unfortunate case of Hung Kao. But I think for if we do that, if we take care of that, or if the people do by not electing him, I think then we're going to see brighter prospects indeed. And I think if they come my way and support me, and we believe that's happening in a good way, we're going to win this nomination. Then we're going to also go on and have the ability, the background, the history of winning that is my record, and put that to bear against this guy who's a true loser. He has done nothing to help our state. He's gone through around the state with money and dropped it hither and thither. But when it comes to actually helping the typical Virginian, he's betrayed them. And this needs to come out. People need to see what he has done, to know that the inflation is a result of his support for massive government spending, to know that he's had numerous opportunities to support closing the border or stopping the interdicting the fentanyl coming in, and he has avoided it. He's not voted in favor of that. In fact, he's done the opposite. He's voted for increasing this human processing where they give welfare, food stamps, Medicaid, and incentivize illegal entry. He's been an utter disaster. He's fully supported the climate change agenda while at the same time he goes in and tells people in the parts of the state where they make coal and oil and gas. He tells them that he's protecting their interests. That's a big fat lie. He's voted for destroying the fossil fuel industry in this country. He's voted in favor of every measure to cause EV vehicles to be the only vehicles available. It's not that we hate EV. You can let it grow on its own. It doesn't look like it does very well, but you certainly don't want to have these emission standards out of the EPA destroying the opportunity for people to buy a fossil fuel car. But he's all behind all this nonsense.
Jonathan Emord, it's give the website address, and we're going to have to run and let you get on to your campaigning day, but we appreciate you jumping in on the program. What's your campaign website again?
emordforva.com.
Well, you have a wonderful day, sir, and thank you for jumping in on this breaking story, again, out of the mouths of some of your opponents. But I appreciate it, sir, and you have a great day.
Take care.
And thank you for joining us this morning. Ran over a little bit here, and we just got with Chap Peterson. Chap Peterson, we're going to talk about his new book, Rebel, where he stood up to his own political party and their governor over the issue of the science and the COVID. We'll get into that with him tomorrow morning. For you, thank you for joining us until tomorrow when we do it again at 6. So long, and thanks for all the fish.